back to the origin. So listen for the rhythm, pulsing sonic lava through every pore in your skin. We never really left you, even when you feel bereft. We're still here listening. The ancient womb of memory pulses like the tides of the sea. High tide, low tide, and everything in between. Going way down, going way down, going way down, so go back to the vision of your, the vision of your origin. So go back to the vision of your origin, of your origin. Whoa, go back to the vision of your origin, of your origin. Whoa, go back to the vision of your origin, of your origin. I'm on a mission to reclaim the vision of our origin. Oh, we're gonna way down.
Ah,
Way to
So
start
yummy.
live.
yum. Mm.
It was sweet.
Mm.
Thank you.
Mm.
God.
DJ
So good.
Maya.
Good evening, good afternoon, whatever time it is.
Evening, definitely evening.
Afternoon.
Definitely
Afternoon in
morning.
Amsterdam.
Definitely morning here.
I feel like this is like our coming out party.
Yes, yeah.
I'm all a little nervous and shy for some reason. I'm going to get over that really soon, but
I feel a bit of that too.
so, yeah.
So
Aw.
cute.
How you all doing?
What about you, Sophie?
Hmm?
What about you?
I'm really excited about this topic. I've been like meditating on it all day.
All
Mm.
day.
All
I
day.
woke up late today, like 10 a.m. So for me, it still feels like morning. I'm really disoriented. Usually I'm up pretty early. So I'm like, whoa.
You woke up at
I'm
a
usually
Sophie
in bed
time,
by
Maya.
this time.
Mm. So, should we start diving in?
Yes.
Why here we are to
Yes.
talk about why are relationships so hard? Why are they so hard? Or at least for some of us, why are they so hard? I'm sure there are some pretty magical people out there where they would be like, I don't know what you're talking about, but I haven't met many of those people.
No.
What I
No, yeah.
realized, topic of this video, when we decided on this topic, or you guys decided on a topic, but like a week ago.
Mm.
And every time I thought of the topic, the theme, I was like, there's like a million different answers to that.
Mhm.
And they're all so true.
Yeah.
I thought I was thinking about this, about diving in. I thought it might be a fun place to actually just start with sharing like our own personal top reason for why relationship is hard. You know, because I imagine it's quite unique and different for each of us. You know, each of us probably have a different reason of where we get caught or where we get tripped up or struggle in relationship, and
Where
that
we
might
get, I like that. I like that too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great idea.
point. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it is-
Does
I-
anyone want to share their open up and air out their closet first?
I was going
I
to
don't
say I
wanna
bag
start.
someone else start, and that's probably how my relationships start and end.
What's going on? I couldn't hear that because you were going at the same time.
I said when Damien said, "Would someone like to share?" I said, "I bag someone else start," and that probably says a lot about why my relationships start and end
I'll
as
go
well.
first.
Oh yeah, Maya.
Give me a moment though to drop in for that question.
Mm. I love how you do this, by the way, Maya.
What, going first or?
No. You just, I
Breathing.
notice you just take the time to drop into your body and just check inside. And I really admire it. You take the space to do that. And yeah, I really like it.
Thanks, babe.
Feels good.
So a lot has shifted in this particular area for me in the last year. So I have to speak a little bit from different perspectives. At the moment, relationships aren't as hard for me as they used to be. But like the element that will always remain is like, okay, hold on. What made relationships hard for me in particular was, there was a lot of trauma. And I knew that on a conceptual level, but to actually really go into it and work with it, that was a bit of a different journey. And so looking back, I found myself just really struggling I was really just like super guarded, really guarded. And, like at times I would call it introvert, or others thought I was arrogant. Mostly I was just really guarded, and I had a lot of trouble just opening up to different perspectives. I had a lot of trouble acknowledging and owning the impact that I had on others. So it's kind of typical, like more avoidant in some senses until I got into a relationship, but very avoidant in the sense of like, I don't want to, like everyone is just on their own. I don't want to have to deal with your issues and your emotional stuff. And if something is bothering you, that's up to you to deal with. And it doesn't make for great relationships. Yeah, so it was a very strong paradigm of me versus you. Like, I take care of myself, you guys take care of yourselves. And then ironically, I mean, not so much if you know what attachment theory shows us, but usually the moment I got into an actual, intimate relationship, that completely flipped, like all the anxiety would spill out. And yeah, so there was no common ground either of like, I can hold myself, I can have certain kind of, like space holding for others or meeting others. It was very like either I'm over here and you're over there, or it was just like completely mushed together.
Yeah.
Extreme, which is a theme in my life anyway. And what I'm seeing these days is that there's so much more balance, and even like not even balance of switching between the two, but kind of like an integration of like, there's me and there's you, and then there's us. And the awareness of those three fields, as well as filling those buckets and being aware of them, like there's the relationship that we need to nurture. I need to nurture my own capacity of holding myself and whatever is going on, as well as I want to open myself to others, especially when I feel triggered, especially when I'm going through something hard. because that was another thing. I would just like hide away if I was depressed or yeah. So I think for me, the key, hold on, maybe that's going to a different topic already. Yeah, let's focus on why they were hard. Okay.
Yeah.
So mostly I would say, if I had to sum it up in a way, like lack of vulnerability, lack of wanting to be seen and felt in my humanness. And then of course, because of that, sorely lacking the capacity to do that for others.
When you were like not wanting to be seen, like you didn't let yourself be seen in your vulnerability, what did that do to the other person that you're in partnership with? How did they respond or react to that?
There would always be an extra layer on top of it. So instead of showing my actual emotions, I mean, I couldn't because I wasn't so much aware of them. I was aware of all the compounding, all the stuff around it that was actually hiding that core part, you know, the true sensitive part. And then there's layers on top of that of like, I'm fucking angry, or I'm a victim, or you this, or, you know, it's like a lot of stuff that gets mistaken for vulnerability at times.
Mm. Mm.
And outside of intimate relationships, that would look like being such a loner, because on some level I knew that I couldn't really do relationships if I was so guarded and actually had so much unprocessed pain. And yeah, so I would distance myself from a lot of people. And then the harder the times that I was going through, the more I would just like distance myself.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of the other way around now. If I go through something hard, I still have this inclination to kind of like, oh, I don't want to be seen in this, but it's way easier for me to reach out. It's way easier for me to still go and meet people. And then if people are like, yeah, how are you doing? Like all that stuff. I'm just like, I'm not doing so well. And that's okay. To be able to show up in that is just, yeah, it makes for true intimacy.
Mm.
Yeah,
Beautiful.
I have one more question. What was the vulnerability that was hidden by all these layers? What was that? What was that wanting to share? What was that wanting to say? Or what's it able to say now?
One of like, I think like the core of it that I uncovered was just like, there's something wrong with me. That manifests, that expresses itself in like, of course, like a myriad of different ways. But in essence, I always kind of feared there was something just like inherently wrong with me and bad about me. And of course, then like another layer is, you know, like, okay, I'm not worthy of love. I'm going to get rejected. Yeah, but a core one for me that I'm very aware of these days, and which I'm relating to in a very different way, is like, there's something inherently wrong with me. I think it's a 4 thing, perhaps.
Probably, yeah, I have that.
Right?
And I imagine there's a lot of people similar who, like, when something starts going wrong, you know, when something starts going wrong in a relationship, there's like one of 2 responses. There's something wrong with you, you're the problem, or there's something wrong with me, I'm the problem.
Yeah, I had an 8-month period in my life, super dark night of the soul, where at a certain point, I caught my mind, my ego doing this ping pong game of like, this fuck he and this, and I'm like, oh my God, and what the fuck is, and then it's like, whoop, switching it back to like, oh my God, what is wrong with me? I'm so broken. I'm so flawed. I'm just like so hideous on all levels. And at a certain point, I was like, this doesn't make any sense. And it literally, it did bring me one of the biggest breakthroughs of my life, where that just like dissolved and integrated to like, no one did anything wrong here. Nothing is wrong with us. There were just 2 traumas colliding, and we both did some things, or some things about our behavior was just like immature or whatever, or just like didn't know any better. we didn't do anything wrong. He didn't do anything wrong. I am just like, in terms of being human and relational, like that was an enlightenment period, breakthrough, where, yeah, kind of just saw through that game of the mind. And now it's easier for me to catch it when my ego is playing this game. It still happens, but I can usually catch it way sooner. Like, oh, hold on.
It's playing that game of, oh, there's something wrong with you, or so there's something wrong with me, and you can catch that now. Fantastic. And you can still say, you can remain in connection with your sweetheart while you're in the middle of that. There's something wrong with me. Would that be correct? Or
I don't have a sweetheart at the moment. Yeah, I would say so, because what I'm noticing these days is that, like, in all of the connections, in all of the relationships, if someone comes to me and needs to communicate something about my impact on them, the go-to response is no longer defensiveness, which is just kind of like, I feel there's something wrong with me, so I actually need to push that feeling away. It's more like, hey, there's a deep inner knowing there's nothing wrong with me, and I might need to become aware of certain elements of how I conduct myself, of how I treat others, and that's fine, because I know it doesn't say anything about me at my very core.
And it speaks so beautifully, I think, when the power of judgment. Somebody once told me, like, what we judge can't move, can't change, isn't free to be. And so the moment we judge something, we actually set it, like it gets stuck. And so when we judge our partners for having a trigger, or we judge ourselves for having a trigger, or we judge anybody for whatever comes up in relating, is the moment also the whole process gets stopped. Like nothing gets to move, nothing gets to actually be digested, because nobody responds to judging.
And it's a sneaky one, because the deeper I go, it's like the more I realize that even certain discernment, or even a certain way of kind of wanting to navigate a certain kind of conversation, is like, oh fuck, that is judgment, but the judgment is so deep down. It's like, no, I was just like saying, it's like, oh wow, yeah.
I think to your point, Sophie, and perhaps in navigating this in my, there's a sense of, for me, being willing to be, well, I always phrase it as, do you want to be right or do you want to be happy? And so when you're getting that kind of, let's say, feedback from somebody else, they're sharing impact, you can, I notice myself all sometimes default to that place of, oh, I'm wrong, I've done something wrong. But then if I'm willing, and I think that's also a defense strategy to either put the blame on me or to find something wrong in the other person. Whereas if I'm willing to if I can listen and just kind of like hear what they're being said and go, all right, well, I'd rather be happy than right. Where do we meet? Where can we meet? Where is there a place where I can not judge, but we can find a place of common ground, so that I can hear you, I can receive that, and then from there we can move somewhere, but at least it's not somewhere which says that I am wrong or you're wrong. There's space within which to maintain essentially the relationship. We're still relating when we're not judging, because as you said, Sophie, once we judge, we kind of fix something in place, either I'm wrong or you're wrong or something like that. So that's definitely one of my practices, is trying to remain in relationship while the heat is kind of coming.
Yeah, and I think something about all like the like just reading books about relationship stuff, we just get more fuel to judge, right? Because then I can always go to my partner and be like, you're not present enough, you're anxious, you're avoidant. And it actually, like the book Getting the Love You Want talks so beautifully about like war zone versus love zone.
Yeah.
Like I was reflecting on this question, and I don't find relationships hard anymore. And it's because my current partner is partnering with me, assuming that everything that my nervous system, his nervous system bring up is okay. Right.
Mm.
And so whether I am avoidant as fuck for a day doesn't necessarily matter, because he's just partnering with my nervous system. So he doesn't get to do this thing of like, you're being avoidant, so I'm not going to talk to you. Because all of that is like, I think we're sometimes looking for an objective judge that will say, you were an unavailable shitty man. Why? When there isn't an objective judge that says that's shitty behavior, that's wrong behavior, because you decide that together. And we're often just
Ooh, I
sitting on
like
that
that.
chair going like, you didn't do something. And that never fosters connection. It just fosters people blocking.
That also made me realize, like, at a certain point, I allowed myself to also be the judge for myself. It's like, okay, I don't need to prove to anyone that this behavior isn't okay, that I'm right in that, for example. It's like, it's not a right for me. And without blame, shame, judgment, but it's like, and I can just relate accordingly.
Yeah. If I can add one last thing to that, like I've always been super anxious, and I thought I had to fix my anxiety, my anxious attachment style. I thought that's what I needed to fix. And I thought I just needed to be okay with a man not texting me back for 3 days, until I realized I could also just date a man that would text me back.
Yeah, totally.
Right. And I was making myself so wrong for not being able to handle somebody that didn't text me back for a few days. Now I'm in a relationship. I've never spent a single ounce of energy on whether that man was going to text me back or not. I have no idea if he does or doesn't. It's just not in my, it's not in my field. But I've made my nervous system so wrong for not being able to handle, or being needy, or being high maintenance, or whatever it was, versus saying, and this is what Amaya always talks about really powerfully, I don't need to make the guy wrong either that doesn't text me back for 3 days. He's not, per definition, unavailable or shitty or whatever.
It's like we can, and a million women will agree with it, but then at the end of the day, how much further along does that get you? It's this game of like, either the whole, like this objective judge, either everyone and everything needs to agree with me, or I just get to come back to my own sovereignty and my own, the body and my kind of my inner knowing is a judge. Like a gatekeeper.
If we bring that objective judge in, nobody would pass.
Yeah.
Nobody is like going to be like, yeah, you're definitely in the right, and the other person was wrong. No. Nobody would pass, because everybody, like when I think about this topic a lot, like I'm really present to just the sensitivity of being human. Like the real sensitivity of being human. And I love what you shared there, Sophie, of like partnering with your nervous system. It's not like you get to this exalted place where I'm now this indomitable like force that's never phased. My nervous system is 100% regulated at all times, nothing. And it's almost like this desire to become securely attached. It's like, I'm going to get to this place where, as an anxious person, I can date avoidant people and they're never going to trigger me. It's like, no, it's actually like we make choices to partner with that which is going to serve us. We start to create a world around us that has us feel good, versus like, I'm just going to prepare myself for like wading through a shitty world and feeling good. It's like, it doesn't really work that way.
Yeah.
That was so one of the main things with this question. Why are relationships so hard? I was like, well, because life, in a way, is hard, or it's easy. Is life hard? Is it easy? It's both. It has ups and downs. It's about how you relate to the challenges. So I'm not going to say like, oh yeah, all of my relationships and everything are super easy, but it's like the way I relate to things makes it like 80-90% easier than it used to be. And it's like, mostly in this thing of not making yourself wrong and not making the other person wrong, but becoming curious, like, okay, how do we navigate this? And every time you hit a snafu, every time you hit this little challenge, it's like, okay, cool, now I'm at the edge of my capacity and there's something here for me to learn. Like, that's why I also did a session with you yesterday, Damien, because I've noticed a thing come up in my relationships. I'm like, I don't know what to do with this. And actually I want to learn, instead of just like putting up more boundaries or just like this. I want to actually learn how to do this more skillfully. And yeah, I think this is what makes Masters of Relating. It's like always being open and curious to learn how to navigate this dance of two or more people better.
Yeah. I like what you said, Amaya. You said that, you know, your relationships your relationship to the challenges in relationship is 80 or 90% better. And it's not like you'll ever get to this thing, you know, it's like with
No
Damien, you know, here's your certificate saying you are 100% secure and we'll give you the stamp.
He did say that.
Or your He did. He gave you the step.
Yeah.
It's our relationship to the challenges, to what life brings us, which I think is the key. It's like a massive paradigm shift, which I've been really enjoying in the last 6 months to a year, of like, oh, I'm no longer questing after the thing, whatever that is, whether that be like secure attachment or, you know, enlightenment or whatever kind of thing I put on a pedestal. It's like, as long as my relationship to that thing is incrementally improving, then I'm on the right track. And it's such a paradigm shift. I remember reading and talking about books, Sophie. I remember trekking through Nepal in the most beautiful landscape in the world with my girlfriend at the time. And we were reading, what's that classic book, Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And we're like, all right, we're gonna sort this. We're gonna get this relationship stuff nailed. And I swear to God, we did everything wrong that we possibly could according to that book while we were reading it. It was like, oh my God. And then you know, going through therapy a couple of years ago around, you know, my attachment style, which I self-diagnosed as avoidant, and then kind of looked at everything through that lens and made myself wrong for everything that I was doing. Is like, oh, you've got an avoidant attachment style. That explains this, and this. And working with my therapist through that until she actually finally said, Russ, you've graduated from the church of self-improvement. Because I was no longer trying to fix anything. I was no longer pathologizing myself. I was no longer reading books and things and kind of picking up hammers and finding the things that were wrong with myself. It was like, all right, what's my relationship to this particular personality that I've inherited, that I have some agency over and sometimes not? And how do I just love the shit out of that while being in a relationship with another person who's doing the same thing? And yeah, it's been wonderful change.
I love how you mentioned not pathologizing anymore, because kind of what I see is, especially when like attachment styles are included, which, you know, it's such a valuable body of work. But what I noticed in myself when I was going down that road, and what I see with a lot of others, and, you know, there's a shadow aspect to everything. But it was kind of like, oh yeah, secure attachment becomes the enlightenment of relationships. And it's just like this striving, and there's always a pathology to find, and there's always something to point out of like, you're not enlightened. And I started filtering everything through this lens. And it's like, I was probably right, but who gives a shit? It didn't make me any better at relating to be like, you're avoidant, that's avoidance. Like, it's textbook. Like, I would have made a perfect psychiatrist or psychologist.
And then it's even better when you tell them, you go, you're just being avoidant right now. Yeah. That's just your avoidance right now. You're an avoidant person. It's like,
yeah.
Okay.
And I see so many women send all these videos to their boyfriends of like, here, study up on avoidance. It's like,
yeah, figure it out so that you'll give me what I need. You figure it out. I can have what I need.
Yeah.
Damien, you say this so beautifully. What's the sentence on like what an avoidant needs to hear and what an anxious needs to hear? Because that's honestly the only thing I really take from this whole attachment stuff, is that we get to partner with our partners. When I notice he goes into an anxious attachment, instead of me making him wrong, I can acknowledge his pain and show up for the pain. But Damien, I know we did that in my podcast once. What did you say? You said these beautiful things.
I can't remember, and I feel a bit like befuddled around the whole thing, because like as I dig deeper into it, it's like similar, like Russ, I'm a self-diagnosed anxious, but then as I actually get closer in intimacy, a lot of avoidant behavior comes out, when someone actually turns around and they're available, I'm like, suddenly like I got walls slamming up all over the place. And I'm like, what is happening here? So, it's like, I think of like, I've started thinking of it as like, there's types, which is kind of like how we'll tend to relate from, and then there are strategies as well, which is like avoidant or anxious strategy behaviors to try and get a particular need met, and the avoidant need met is generally a need for space, and the anxious need met is generally a need for closeness or connection, or the person's here. But then the problem is like, to go into where I get tripped up in relationship is that I can easily, in the past specifically, I'd get enmeshed with the other, and I'd kind of like just abandon my life for this person, and then I'd become emotionally enmeshed as well, which means that whenever they had an emotion, I would have an emotional reaction. Anytime they had an experience, I'd have a reaction to that. And so that my life, from all levels, from the way that I thought, the way that I felt, the way that I lived my life, was completely dependent and related to them. And so then we add to that the layer of complexity that says, divine union, sacred partnership. And it's like, there's a world between them, but they look exactly the same, So it's actually like on the outside, the external, maybe not from the inside, but from the outside, it can look like, what we want is this sacred relationship is actually like this codependent enmeshment. But then there's this like big process of creating a lot of space and sovereignty. And then you're like more and more what you're sharing around, Sophie, of partnering together. So like, and then there's that complexity of like, we now want this partner to do and be all of these things for us. They're not just someone who we make babies with. They're also like our best friend and our spiritual growth partner, and, the best sex of our life, and like everything else. And then we're also like, we've grown up in a society and culture that isn't supported in raising children naturally. We aren't supported in raising children to the degree that a child's developing nervous system needs. None of our parents did anything wrong. We're just in the society and culture that doesn't know how to do that anymore. That doesn't do that. So we've all got these like wounds, and then we get into a relationship, and I get into a relationship with someone, and I go, I'm triggering my early attachment patterns. You're now my mummy, which means that you're both the thing that I'm getting triggered by, and you're the very person that I want to soothe me at the same time. And it's like, that's a lot of pressure.
That's why relationships are hard right there.
Yeah.
Conflict between I want you and you're the source of all my wounds as well. It's just, human beings are very poorly designed. Good Lord. Another one of those.
We got a few design flaws.
When I started to notice in my own life, like separate from relationships, as far as that exists, I was like, oh, I have ups and downs. And I'm not blaming anyone. But the moment that I get into an intimate relationship, all of a sudden, that person is to blame. It's like, it's so much easier. The proximity of certain relationships makes that we see them as, oh, I'm experiencing. It's like, even on a remote island, we would have ups and downs. So in a way, you can like kind of like depersonalize the stuff that we're going through. It looks like the other person may be causing certain things, but it's like there's just a certain proximity, and there's a there's a relation there, but not necessarily a correlation in the sense of you did this, so now I'm feeling. It's like, without this person there, you could also have your ups and your downs.
I'm gonna Damien, can I ask you a question? The similar question, you know, why are relationships so hard? But in this case, I want to ask you to reflect on what has shifted for you in terms of, you know, rather than kind of like just focusing on why is it so hard, but what have you noticed in terms of your growth and your evolution around, you know, what may have been hard in the past and is now growing more comfortable or easy or has disappeared? And what's your sense of what's aided that along the way?
My my real edge at the moment, and the place where I'm growing, where I've been growing and growing more and more rapidly, and definitely the place that seems to be like the real pivotal point for me is around maintaining my own sovereignty inside of a relationship. So that the antidote to that enmeshment, which is like to not take on their reactions, even when it's to my behavior or something that I did or didn't do, to just like kind of allow them to exist separately from me, and to like maintain presence and focus on my work, on my friends, on my own life. And it's not to mean that they can't be included in those things either, but it's really to maintain a sense of sovereignty independent of that person, because that's my particular default of how relationships get so hard, is because I just get completely enmeshed with them. I become you know, like an extension of them, or they become an extension of me. And I find I start to, like, in the past I'd get really foggy, like part of my attention shuts off, and I'm like, I feel like I'm not existing as a whole human anymore. So it's like really maintaining Damien and the fullness of Damien while being in connection is the edge, but also the place that's giving me the most increasing beauty in relationship.
How do you do that?
How do you do that? That's like a yeah.
Like 20 years of inner work, but like, can you, like, in the moment, because as you were speaking that, I realized I have been doing more of the same, and I noticed the moments, like I told you yesterday in our session, where I missed that moment where the energies do start to get entangled, and then we're like trauma into trauma, like la, 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 la. And there's like not that sovereignty anymore. Everything becomes so personal. Whereas if you have a conflict, but you can remain some sort of autonomy.
Autonomous.
Autonomy.
Yes.
Yeah.
That one. Then you can have conflict without collapsing into it. It's kind of like what you said. It's like if someone has an emotional reaction even towards me, and I can receive that but not get all entangled, it's you don't become so foggy. It's just a whole other. But do you, in the moment, how would you describe that happening?
What I'm learning, leave the country. It's another option.
I thought I'd throw that in there as a strategy. You know, I leave the country, but I'm interested in a different way.
What?
Good way of dealing with it. Leave the country and change my phone number.
And
all my email addresses and my Facebook.
Trust me, on the phone with someone in a different country, it still happens.
Yeah, totally.
No,
yeah, I know it happens.
It's not true.
Yeah. Like I think it's a process of recognizing that once we're in that entangled conflict, it's all kind of like nonsense. Once we reach that point, it's all like nothing either of us is saying is making any sense. So it's like,
right.
That's a first step. It's just absolute nonsense once we're in that place. And that's a practice to recognize, because the body is screaming out that something's wrong. It's like fucking alarm signals going womp, womp, womp. And it's like the heart's hurting and contracting and so much pain, and you want to like fix it and like go after the other person. Like if I go after them and I get them to admit or do or say something, then this will stop. That doesn't work though. Doesn't really work.
You've tried it?
Yeah, I tried it plenty of times. I don't try it just once. So the way to me seems to be like to get more and more sensitive to what are the markers that are coming up and what are they saying ahead of time. So I may start feeling a contraction, like something's contracting, and I notice that I'm like starting to be like judgy around them and like a little bit critical, and I'm like starting to pick at them in my head. What's actually going on here? More than likely, I need a little bit of space, you know? And that doesn't necessarily mean physical space, but that's probably the best way to practice, is to actually maintain some physical space. Because ideally we want to be able to maintain space while we're together. You know, that's really good. But it's probably more than likely I need to create a little bit of space to feel myself as a sovereign being again. And that's usually where I'm starting to get scratchy at. So it's like, being aware of the little markers that are telling me something's starting to feel off, and like listening to them before they start yelling at me, you know.
Right.
Listen to the baby when the baby's going versus when it's screaming its head off, you know. Those are the signs that something's a little bit wrong, and if we don't pay attention right now, the house is going to scream down, and it will probably take a long time to calm that baby down. Whereas you pick them up right now and burp them, they're probably fine, you know. Like
Right. Yeah.
If
And I guess
can I
you
answer
spent-
this question?
yeah, you
So
answered.
I've noticed that there's two parts to this. So similar as Damien, the moment my righteousness kicks in that's when I know I need to not act on it. And that's been a practice of years, that the more I feel I should say this, that's the least I should say it. The more
love how you
fierce I
go,
feel.
It's a practice
Huh?
of years. No, it's a practice of years.
Yes.
No one likes to hear that. It's like, what's the
But it
Right,
is.
totally. They want the top 5 tips to sorting out your relationship, and so I can.
3
It's a
days.
practice of years. Yeah, the more I feel like I should say that to him because that is what he did shitty. That's when I shouldn't say it.
Wow.
The more I want to get my
Feel
right.
that.
I just
fucking
at
hard.
the moment I just want to offer a prayer and pay homage to all of my past girlfriends for being part of that kind of lineage of like helping me over years kind of get to this place, because Jesus fuck, you know, and we're all teaching each other, and we're all
Right.
we're all walking each other home. But I
Yeah.
just want to have a moment there of gratitude, and I'm sorry.
I saw another past lover of mine post to Instagram the other day. If you dated me between, I don't know, like 2010, 2015, he said, go and find a therapist. What's wrong with you girls? I was like, okay, I dated you a few years later. It was all right, but I get like, if I think back to past relationships, sometimes I'm thinking, what was I thinking? But I'm also sometimes thinking, what were they thinking?
Totally.
That's right. I mean, that's Harville Hendrix's thing of, you know, we relationships are here to complete what was not finished in childhood. And then as we reparent ourselves to varying degrees, those new relationships that we call in are there actually to meet the parts that are still incomplete. And maybe we can do that within the context of one, and maybe it takes a village to kind of continue that repair process. And
A village of women for us, Russell.
oh man,
Oh, man.
particular case. And look, I think in our society as well, on that village note, like the most successful long-term relationships I've seen do have a village around them. They have a community and a center of gravity of which they are a part of. Whereas I notice, you know, having been quite nomadic as well myself, that the context, the communal context of some of my relationships has been the village aspect has been quite thin, and so the gravitational pull holding that relationship together has not been as strong as like some of my friends who've been in one place for a long time, and you know and are actually kind of the center of a community. They will organize people around themselves, and people know them as, oh, that's, you know, that's Ben and Jesse. They're always there, and they hold it down, and we love them, and there's something else holding that relationship. There are other parts, as opposed to, I think in this world, it's like you meet someone, we've all got busy lives, we live in our separate boxes, we see each other in our spare time, and we expect that's enough, in a sense, and that it's just, you know, there's some form of compatibility which is enough. And I think there's environmental glue which we're still kind of identifying in many ways. I think at the moment our conversation is very focused on what's the inner world and the inner circumstances. Can I become secure enough or manage my nervous system enough that we can continue? But I think there's, you know, often I don't give this advice to many people usually because they don't listen, but I think for some people, if you want a long-term relationship, you should go to Saudi Arabia, because there the culture is very much about monogamy and long-term relationship, and everything about the culture supports a man and a woman staying there. Now, there's other things about the culture which are not so good, like women can't drive and people occasionally get stoned. But the next
That's a good
best
kind of
place
stone.
that I've yeah, but the next best place I've seen is actually the Philippines. The Filipinos that I've worked with are the most beautiful people. The men will go away for like 12, 15 months. I've worked with them and they will send all their money back home to their family. Their wives and their family wait for them. They get to marry for love and they choose to be with each other, and their family units are very, very strong and strong enough to hold the departure of the man for that long and have him come home and feel welcomed. And I've seen them work together. They often sit next to each other. This is the men. And so there's that kind of that physical connection as well, a bit like the Balinese, who, the babies don't actually touch the ground for 3 months. They're always held. And what effect would that have on your nervous system to be so deeply held and nourished that, when you left your community, you wouldn't have this attachment anxiety because it's so deeply nourished to begin with. And so the Balinese also, I think, have a beautiful way of conducting relationships and community. It's not perfect because I've seen the inside of that as well, but there are clues here and things which I think we miss in the West.
I love that
which
you
make our relationships tricky.
I love that you
For me,
just
this
gave
is
It's why I moved. It's why we're all like,
we'll all talk at once.
okay, one, two.
Actually,
It's why I moved back.
I love that you just gave a cultural context for the thing that I shared before. So it's like we live in a society that doesn't do that. We put our children in a separate room and let them cry it out, which causes a certain degree of distress inbuilt into our amygdala and the early parts of our brain, right? The survival parts of our brain. And with that, an associated anxiety and shame core, that's what tends to happen from these things. And then also there's an increased complexity in our what we call developing countries, or whatever label we want to, that's distinct from this, in that the family unit has a particular structure, right? And the structure is to raise a family. In our cultural paradigm, it's no longer about raising a family. It's about something so much more, and includes that and a lot of other things, which means that, that's why it's not just like, if your partner was going to go away and work for 12 to 15 months as a woman, well, most women are independent financially enough to go, you don't need to do that. Like, I don't want you to do that. And if you did, well, I'd probably go find someone else, because I'm not resting on you for that kind of support. So we have a very different kind of layers of complexity that are involved here.
Yep. That's right.
But I also love that what you're saying, there's clues to include.
100%.
Yeah. Sorry, Sophie.
So for me, one of my I think my only core value or boundary, really, and a side note, the more secure my relating is felt, the less I use boundaries, or I feel any need for boundaries. And boundaries are value statements rather than anything else, because
not the way I
love
define
that.
it.
Yeah, but my partner has my best interest in mind. So I don't need to say like, you need to give me my space. I can just say, hey, I feel frazzled, and he knows me, and he can really say, I can see you. I'm gonna go get out of the house for a day. So it's not this like, I don't have to fight him anything. But what my only, I think, core boundary or value is that I need my partner to have an ecosystem, an emotional ecosystem that isn't just me.
It's
Because
a
I think
value. Feels like a value to me, Yeah,
and that means that, for instance, if he gets triggered, that there's a brotherhood he could fall back on. And it doesn't mean that he has to do that every time, but that does, like, if that didn't exist, too much would fall on me, and I can't hold that. I don't want to hold that. That makes me mommy or therapist or whatnot.
Yeah.
And so that's, I think, my core like community feeling is that I need to feel that somebody's emotional system isn't only regulated by me, the partner, and vice versa.
Right. Yes, yes. And I think, yeah, there's a
That's so
cultural,
good.
maybe that points to the cultural piece I'm talking about, that there's a community of people, a village that can also hold that emotional ecosystem. Yeah, I love that. I love your point on boundaries too. It's a whole other conversation, but yeah.
No, I know.
Shall
Yeah,
we
Imai,
take a
I'm
little
curious,
break?
you had something to say?
No, I'm good. Thanks, babe.
I was wondering, should we take a little pee break, drink break, and then maybe check if there's any questions to come back to?
I just had one question. Like, we opened the session with my really sad story, and now, like, all the way to how amazing it is now. Are we good? Like, did we all weave our stories in, or do you want to have a segment?
I feel like I wove mine in.
Okay, and then Sophie, you had 2 points. I have ADD brain. It's like I hold on to this little pin that you put. We all talked for like an hour, but you said I have 2 points, and we interrupted you. Was there another point that you wanted to?
You're so cute. I love you for listening that
it's
much.
like ADD brain or whatever.
sweet.
Like, there's a pin.
No, it's totally okay. I totally have a sad story if we want to talk about sad relationship, like terrible stuff.
Man, I have some of
Many
those
of
too,
those.
yeah.
Many of
All right,
really
let's do
terrible,
like-
toxic. Yeah. Okay, pee break and
All right.
music.
Yeah, I'll put on some music. Come
For
back. in a
people
couple-
listening, put
We'll be
your
back.
questions in the chat. Yeah.
Yep, we'll come
Yes,
back. We'll have a look
send
at the
us some chat.
questions. We'll have a look at the
Dang it, I had a
questions. Yep.
defined G center. Didn't I check in with you about
No,
this?
I have an undefined G center.
What?
You have
Yeah,
an undefined
Oh,
G
I
center.
could have sworn that you had a
No, no.
defined.
undefined. I just had my reading with Fabrice last night. Anyway, let's talk
Oh.
about that later. That's great.
You're talking about
Russ.
human design. I'm like,
Yeah. And gene keys. Yeah,
Fabrice, everyone book a session with Fabrice.
yeah.
I'm sorry.
I love this music.
DJ Amaya. Oof.
It was yum. You want to tell the audience what that was?
That was Temple Bell by Emog, I think.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
what it
people
looks like.
saying that I should DJ for like years. I'm like, I just want to provide all the songs. I don't want to do the nitty
You know, one of the
gritty.
mixy bit.
Yeah, and the first one was Origin by Wahina Sitka and Ben Temple Step.
Nice.
Luffy,
And
show me your kitties.
did we have any questions that looked really juicy? I can't figure out how to read or comments on the Facebook feed. It's like it doesn't show them
Okay,
all.
somebody asked a really good question on the Facebook comment. Should I read it out loud?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. My housemate told me that he loves and wants to support his girlfriend when she's having stress or even a trauma response, but it's his job as a partner. And he noted that this wasn't codependency. This was part of partnership. How do we know if what we're helping our partner with is codependency or love? Maybe it doesn't matter sometimes. And it's just about whether we have the capacity.
It's a good one. I think that to me is the crux point. Like, you know, and I love what that's just sentence you said before, Sophie's been playing around in my mind of partnering with each other's nervous systems. I think that's because there's a fine line where we're enabling kind of an ongoing trauma entanglement, but then there's another line of like, if we are wanting to partner with each other, we are by nature in a relationship that is healing and transformative, you know, healing in the way that it's repairing dysregulation so that we're increasingly regulated together, and transformative in that we're actually actively growing and expanding together. So, you know, to want to do that for your partner does seem like to me, it's like something that I believe that we're going to want to do in relationship, because there are very few people, if any, that I know who are completely free of dysregulation, who are completely free of, you know, not getting emotionally taken out, not going into some form of avoidance or anxiety or some other thing, at least sometimes, you know. So
I think that I know quite a few people, especially in the spiritual scenes, that think they're completely regulated, but it's actually avoidance.
yeah.
Amen.
And I don't think that's the ultimate goal either. I don't know if I would trust somebody who isn't dysregulated at some point, because life happens as well. And life is going to give you a big dose of life. And if you're so shut down or, you know, enlightened or whatever the fuck you want to call it, that you're just not feeling it, you're kind of numb. Plus, I think dysregulation or just challenge is that's the entry point for life to help you emerge. You don't actually want to stop being dysregulated. You want to shift your relationship to that experience so that it assists you in allowing greater parts of yourself to emerge. And so I think maybe that would be the answer to that question, Sophie. I'm not sure if I heard it 100% accurate, but in terms of am I being codependent or something like that, it's like, are you using that experience as fuel for your own growth and or deeper connection in a way that feels nourishing and sustainable? Or does it feel like it's draining you of energy and doesn't feel sustainable? And that would be one of my first points of inquiry.
Well,
and to kind of like let go of this label of codependency, because I think, as Damien's saying, you know, we're in relationship. To some extent, you can pathologize relationship as being codependent. And so I would avoid using that word and try and develop a deeper relationship with your nervous system and ask yourself, does this feel at some level nourishing and sustainable and worth deepening into? And if so, then continue and follow that thread.
What I also feel is that, you know, when someone else is dysregulated, because I think that's what the question was about, there's a difference between becoming completely enmeshed with that situation and taking it on in whatever way, shape, or form, or being there for someone else and you can, you know, help them regulate, or just be there for them as a witness or as a support when they regulate themselves. What I've noticed in past relationships, if one of us became dysregulated, then the other became dysregulated. Eventually we would get out of it. That's what felt what crosses over into codependent, or, you know, if you don't want to call it that way, just like a more unhealthy way to deal with that. And for me, an important piece, it's not black and white, but if the other person doesn't also have a certain level of ability of self-soothing, self-regulating, you know, and so that you can kind of like, you know, it's this thing of you're like this and you can come together instead of just collapsing into, and we can't always completely, like sometimes we're in so much pain, but if I've also been around people who have almost zero capacity to self-soothe or self-regulate or whatever you want to call it, it's near impossible, or at least speaking from personal experience, to not do that in a unhealthy, you know, unenmeshed way, because there's kind of like a latching on, like, oh my God, I need you right now to regulate. There is no other way. It's like, if that is not the case, then to help someone else come back to their center is so much easier, you know, if they want it, versus have no other option but you.
Yeah, I think enmeshment and codependency has shown up for me that when they are triggered, I get pulled out of my center.
Yeah.
When they are confident and calm, I'm confident and calm. Like my nervous system is always moving with theirs. And there's now in my current relationship, I feel very connected to him, and I feel that there's almost a little bit of space around our nervous systems where his can do a lot of things. I can be connected to him, but it doesn't necessarily bring me in every direction. And so when that's the case, I can open my heart much more. When he's in his little boy, I can open my heart more. And he's actually very good at this, of just opening, when I'm lashing out, opening his heart to me, because that's even like the small child that's having a temper tantrum is looking for connection and doesn't know how to get it. Right? Like the base of almost all of these pains is a disconnect, is that I can't feel you, I can't feel you, I feel alone, and I'm not connected to your heart. So I think maturity comes into being able to open your heart, even when your partner is saying you're being a fucking shitty person, blah, 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 whatever it is, right? And I don't think healthy relationships don't have conflict or don't have dysregulation. I think I have a healthy relationship. We have fights all the time. We return to goodness very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think that's what safety actually is. It's returning to goodness. It's knowing I can be grumpy as fuck and you and I are going to be okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can be triggered as hell, tired. I can be angry with you. I can feel lonely, and we're going to come back to each other. That's what actual safety is. It's not that I'm never triggered or I'm never upset with you or you're never doing anything wrong or we're like these perfect little Buddhas. We're not, but we come back. And that's what is making this current relationship for me feel extremely safe, because there's something we come back to. And so there's space for my ugly. My ugly isn't a deal breaker.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm reminded of one of my
go on, Chris.
Yeah, sorry. So one of my hypno therapy teacher many years ago, before attachment theory was a thing and before boundaries were a thing about 1,000 years ago. He'd done a lot of relationship counseling, and he said this thing to me, which I felt was really liberating. He said, all couples have 4 or 5 core issues which they never resolve. And that statement in and of itself was deeply liberating. It's like, well, okay, there is no such thing as a perfect relationship from his experience. And then he said the couples that stayed together had a couple of things in common. And they said one was a sense of humor. And the second was that they returned to connection swiftly after conflict, which I think is what you're pointing to, Sophie, is that there's a return after a break, there's a return. And he said the couples that didn't go so well were, or ended up splitting, were because they left, there was a rupture, and one went out the door and left for the weekend, and the other kind of student, that rift, that time gap was just too long to repair. And yeah, I thought that was really insightful. Gave me a lot of hope.
For me, what's a vital piece in returning to connection and returning to peace more swiftly is, and then this goes for both parties, that like you need to all kind of have a similar level of being able to take responsibility and accountability. You know, if we get triggered, if we get dysregulated, if we stay in a space of like, you did this to me, you are wrong, you need to fix this, you, it's so hard to move back, because then it's still you against me. If we're like, okay, there is something here, but again, it's this thing of it's there, but it's not necessarily anyone's fault. So can we both come to, like, the thing doesn't even have to resolve ever. Certain things, right? Like you said, certain in every configuration of 2 or more people, there's always going to, because it's impossible, because we're not the same people, so there's always going to be a little gritty edge somewhere. We just have to refine how much, you know, of a conflict zone. It's like some things are not worth it, but whenever 2 or more people come together, there's this little zone of friction. And
I would say when one person's in the room, there's friction. I think like conflict, this whole notion that there shouldn't be conflict. I mean, there's a catastrophe in my head any given moment of the day. So it's like, you know, the sense of like there shouldn't be conflict, just we need to let go of that for a start. And then, sorry, Maya jumped in, but yeah, the practice is, how do we get better at returning to connection, both with ourselves, with the other? There's the art of relationship right there.
Yeah, and if we remain in this space of the fact that there's conflict is a problem, or the fact that there's conflict means that you then we don't return to this space of like, we both have, we're separate people, we're separate nervous systems, however they are interconnected, you know.
There's something for me about like getting the thing that comes up for me on my parents' door at home. There's a sticker that says, "You don't have to believe everything you think." And there's something for me about like getting really honest with what a trigger is and what dysregulation means, because it can be very subtle. It can be way more subtle than some of us can realize. So there's extreme dysregulation where like everything fucking hurts. I'm in tears, my head's gone foggy. For me, I go into freeze states and I'm like, you know, someone will say, "What do you need?" I can't even conceive what I would need in those moments. That's my particular trauma flavor. But there's a whole spectrum, you know, and that, you know, there are very, very subtle ways of dysregulation, very, very subtle ways of trigger. The place where we spoke about it right from the beginning, judgy, I'm getting a little bit critical. I'm looking at them and they're like, they make a noise or they're chewing and I'm like, I hate the way they chew, or like they bang and I'm like, they're being so disrespectful right now. They don't care about my space, like whatever. Like the moment I'm in my mind taking apart my partner in, or, you know, someone I'm intimate with in any way whatsoever, I'm in some form of dysregulated state. Some form of my nervous system is activated. My frontal cortex has become a slave to the part of me that's trying to keep me safe. And I'm now viewing them as a threat, you know, and as a threat, I'm now having able to like run rampant with these judgmental thoughts and criticisms and find all the flaws and all the things. This is like what I'd label an avoidance strategy. It's not, it's just a strategizing to maintain distance from the fear of intimacy. Because intimacy, if we've got insecure attachment, intimacy is kind of scary because intimacy is coupled with the pain of being abandoned. So it's like you've got the moment you come towards intimacy, you're also going to potentially experience the pain of being abandoned. And as a young child, that feels like death. Like it actually feels like I'm dying. So it's like, we want intimacy, but we also kind of like keeping it at bay a little bit, you know, in these deactivating strategies. And one of them is an avoidance strategy. And that's like being really critical about them, being really judgmental about them. The other one is like, well, if I just throw, the more anxious side, if I just throw myself completely at them and like forget about my life completely, then I'll have it. But no, like that's also keeps intimacy at bay. That doesn't actually allow me to have intimacy. So it's like, for me, it's like getting really fine-tuned to the subtlety of when am I out of regulation. And the practice is, how do I not believe myself when I'm in those states? Like, it's so compelling, the internal narrative around all the things that are wrong with them, right? It's so compelling. We have a good, you could sit down and write lists of pros and cons from that state, and it will not give you an accurate picture.
I really love what you pointed out, that dysregulation is actually usually so much more subtle, and that's where it begins until it escalates. And your example is textbook what I went through a couple of months ago with a friend, and it took me needing to take a time out from the friendship and to see that it was actually me creating this whole smoke and mirrors thing. And just like this, I just saw my own projection field, and now it's completely cleared up, and I'm like, whoa, I only saw like judgment, or I was like, whoa, because I'd let it build up too long. So
It's amazing to me
that like the second that I feel a little bit, it's like it's time to sit, it's time to reflect, it's time to communicate, it's time to bring it into connection, you know, and not just like shove it down and have it build up, and then it just it lives into its own story.
You know, and it's like, it's fascinating for me. It's like the moment I'm coming back into a calm, regulated space, they're a wonderful human and they're attractive and beautiful and everything. And my eyes are like sparkly when I look at them. When I start getting dysregulated, they become the devil, you know, they become like this horrific person. It's bizarre, right? And usually like, and I've been tracking it in myself like for years, and often I will go into those critical stances. I will start looking at them from that lens when I feel fear that they're going to abandon me. I will start pre-abandoning them with my judgments. Right? And then they may be doing some version of that over on their side. So we're in this like subtle, like I'm actually like, you're not good at, like it's complex. But it's often a fear of intimacy or loss of intimacy that's driving these reactions.
And they're two sides of the same coin. Because just avoidance is actually anxiety with like an extra layer of defense on top. It's like avoidance is not the opposite of anxiety. It is anxiety covered up. It's such a... But guys, I do see that I need to leave soon. One thing that I realized as we had our pee break that I just want to bring to the conversation, it's like this question, right? Like why are relationships so hard? So one really essential answer here for me is we're not taught anything about relating, anything. We just get imprints of mostly how not to relate. Let's be really fucking real here. From society and from our parents, and then also from our precognitive states, our super vulnerable nervous systems, or the disintegration of like nuclear families and tribes and everything. So we're all brought up with mostly patterns and imprints of how to not do it. And we learn a lot through trial and error. But what I've learned in the last few years is I actually need to seek out mentors and therapists and teachers and friends that are, you know, like that are role models and
I love that.
all of the things. Like I cannot overstate this. You know, it's like we
Mm.
need more examples and we need professional help, and we can make it fun. Like so many people are into this now. So
Yes.
there's teachers and coaches and mentors, and it's like learn everything you can learn about trauma, about relating, about communication, about conscious conflict. It's like the most valuable thing that you can invest in. You know, it's like you investing in yourself, but there is no separate self outside of relationships. So for me, life just became the quality of life has just become, it's like a day and night difference now that I'm like comfortable in relating, even with conflict. Versus before, where I was just like avoiding all sorts of relating, friendships, and everything because it was just a minefield for my nervous system. I was like, no thanks.
Totally.
Yeah, and I think you bring a beautiful piece here, Maya, that like we don't graduate to self-development school. We're never finished. And so we need, I think we need an objective outside professional person that can mirror us, our blueprints, and not to make them wrong, but so that we ourselves can literally start regulating our own like pain. Like I don't think I will ever get over certain traumas, but I've gotten to know them now. I know when they're triggered. I know when I'm activated in them. I know when they come up in my relationship. 5 years ago, I was a slave to them. Right. And so that is my goal, I think, in all my self-development work, is that I really get to know my energetic blueprint, my nervous system. And that does, like, I think I will always have a more anxious tendency in relating. I don't have to get over that. What I get to do as an adult is not date people that put me into like an addicted brain mindset. Right. That's what I get to do as an adult, is taking care of the fragile nervous system and creating a life so that it can settle down. And that's why I love that you're bringing this up about therapy, because our partners can't do this for us. We need an objective mirror, that the only reason they're sitting there is to mirror us, so that we can explore our own story, or explore our own nervous system, and take ownership of it. And that doesn't mean fixing it or making it go away. That literally means creating the structures, the communication, so that we take responsibility for it, I guess. Yeah.
I love how it's really woven into this whole episode. It's like there's so much you can do for yourself, and it's essential. There's so much you can do for each other, and it's essential. And there is so much that needs to happen outside of the relationship unit. We need friends, we need mentors or teachers, we need professionals. For some of us, for many of us, that's a therapist, probably not necessarily. For others, it can be a coach. But like you said, that unbiased, and in the cases of more severe trauma, professional and licensed unbiased mirrors. And so then you get this sacred trinity of like, you got the whole system.
I love that.
My piece to add, you know, kind of echoing some of what you were saying before, Russell, of like, you know, I'm just like, I'm really present to the sensitive fragility of being human, you know, and to like, to learn to toe the line between not being hard on ourselves, you know, like, you know, and give up the like I had for so long in my life, I held the fantasy of like having it all together, like having it completely figured out, versus, you know, just actually a deep acceptance of who I am. So to toe the line of like not being hard, kind of giving up these, you know, fantasy narratives of being the absolutely ideological man or woman, you know, who's absolutely got it perfectly nailed down, everything's wonderful, you know, exuberant life. And at the same time, to continue to strive for developing and growing and excellence. It's like, it's such a fine line to be able to toe those two things. But, you know, like definitely I see, you know, sometimes I see, and I've started kind of unfollowing narratives that give such a harsh kind of ideological standard for how a man should be, or how a woman should be, or how a relationship should be. Because the more I kind of tune in, the more I just see that as like, as harmful, as like this unrealistic standard for most humans. There's a sense of like that leads to more self-judgment rather than liberation, you know. And that's not to say that relationships can't be this incredibly wonderful thing, but they become that way through being in reality, through being in right relationship with reality of, where am I right now? How capable am I right now? The people that I'm dating and meeting right now are probably pretty accurate reflections of my own internal state. And if not, I wouldn't choose them. Or if when I saw them representing behaviors and ways of being that I didn't like, I would move away from them. But if I continue to date them, they are representations of my own internal system. So you know, there's a diagnostic element to relationship there as well that I can take from, so that I can actually look at myself, and I can be honest. And if I'm, you know, both at the same time of like releasing the unrealistic expectations of myself, of like, I have to be, you know, the absolute epitome of the sacred conscious masculine man, and I have to read everything about the sacred conscious masculine man that any woman out there who's got a fantasy of meeting such a man might take that on, and then beat myself with a stick because I'm not it, and vice versa. And at the same time, releasing that of the other, I can release the expectation of the woman to show up as the completely enlightened being, which is actually really a subtle fantasy of her being my ultimate mum. You know, really, there's a codependent fantasy in that woven into that, you know. So I can release it and go, this is a human being in front of me, and I'm a human being in front of them, and we're working together, partnering with each other's nervous systems to become to have a better life, you know. And like, that's the reality of it, rather than some ultimate thing. Sure, we want wonderful sex, we want lots of laughter and love, but ultimately we just want to like a good, beautiful life together. That's kind of like, that's my 5 cents.
5 seconds. Thanks, David. I'm going to add in, I love everything you guys said, getting that external help. I'm going to add in a couple of tools which I found extraordinarily useful. One, meditation has helped me regulate my nervous system and cultivate some detachment from the noises in my head. And secondly, authentic relating, and getting really good at being able to communicate and articulate in a way which is which down regulates both my nervous system and the other person's. And and listening, just being willing to listen have really stood me well. Are we finishing on the hour? Like, are we now over time? We were going to go for an hour and a half or 2. I can't remember.
I'm going to log off, so I'm going to ask you guys, do you want to log off together, do the meditation track, or do you guys want to keep going?
All right.
I like the meditation track.
I'm ready to put on a track. Ready to put on a track.
Great. So we're all going
to fade out. Yeah. As we put out some music. It's really fun being with all of you. Lovely to see you
so much.
Beautiful.
Oh my goodness.
Beautiful.
It goes so fast. I could talk with all of you for hours.
Super fast.
Yep. Totally. I think we just scratched the surface, but what a treat. What a treat.
Every novel, every soap opera, every drama.
Oh, here we go. Richard Rudd.
Its fundamental theme is the longing.
Thanks for listening if you joined us.
The longing.
Thank you so much.
Home.
Thanks, everyone.
We are home. Home is inside each one of us. We have to follow the river back towards its source. And as we do, we go through a transformation. We go through a healing. Nature returns our energies to us. We open to receive the currents of life and of love once again. When you feel lost, surrender to the feeling. Allow it to soak into you, to the bone. When you feel sad, dislocated, angry, hopeless, afraid, excited, joyous, blissful, enthusiastic, allow the feeling, whatever it is, to become utterly infused into your DNA. Receive it. Receive whatever comes your way. Receive and trust whatever comes your way. Trust everything. You begin to open your heart up to life. You begin to allow life to resonate inside you at a higher frequency. You begin to love it. You let it crush you. You let it drown you. You let the water in. You let life in. Every experience is perfect. Slowly, you begin to relax. And the more we drop our agendas, our trying, our incessant concerns about our lives and others and those around us, and the more we radiate the presence inside us, and then the magic occurs. No agendas, just love. To orient someone is to love them unconditionally. It's to be with them. It's to be yourself with them. It's to let them see your weakness as well as your strength. It's to be empty like water and yet to be full. It's to be intuitive. It's to trust. It's to soften, to yield, to flow. People don't need help. People need love. They need to be reminded of what it feels like to be in the presence of love. It's as simple as that. So the more we surrender to everything, to every moment as perfect, the more oriented we become. Enlightenment, unity, is a physical phenomenon. It's not something outside the body. It requires the body. It celebrates the body. It completes the body. That's the key. Let that truth penetrate deeply into the cells of your body. Unity will not yield to understanding. It's our unbending essence. It's leafless. It's everlasting. It's unfeasibly beautiful. It's our home. Trust everything and go on trusting everything. Trust everyone. Trust your disappointments. Trust your sexuality. Trust your longing. Trust your boredom. Trust your sadness. Trust corruption. Trust conspiracy. Trust the world. Trust the whole shebang. Trust the shadow. It contains a gift. Fear is safe. That's the key sentence to this gift. Let it sink in deeply. Fear is safe. The universe and all its mysteries are hanging in the air before you every day and in every way. And the only way to find unity is to dissolve. You only have to melt into your own life to become one with it. And know that you can never be lost and you can never be wrong, because you are life itself. All we have to do is melt into the dream that is life. Let your heart flow out into the sea of creation. Just surrender yourself to life. Become soft. Become like water. You know you're home. This is really where everything begins. Trust everything and go on trusting everything. Trust everyone. Trust your disappointments. Trust your sexuality. Trust your longing. Trust your boredom. Trust your sadness. Trust corruption. Trust conspiracy. Trust the world. Trust the whole shebang. And know that you can never be lost and you can never be wrong, because you are life itself. Fear is safe. That's the key. Let that truth penetrate deeply into the cells of your body. Allow the feeling, whatever it is, to become utterly infused into your DNA. Receive it. Receive whatever comes your way. Receive and trust whatever comes your way. Trust everything.